Shall we finish off today with the transfer rumour? Ayyoub Bouaddi, the 18-year-old Lille central midfielder, he's been linked recently with Arsenal, with Chelsea, with PSG. Rumours that those clubs are willing to spend over 40 million euros on him. He has just signed a new contract. So we heard these rumours. Then he signed a new contract till 2029. But it's not the kind of contract that you honour. I think it seems like a move designed to get some money for the team that has raised him, because his previous deal was due to expire in 2027. And when he extended, he said, look, I've extended my contract to 2029. And in the same breath, he said, but at the end of the season, there'll be a choice to be made and anything can happen. He's in his second season as a regular for Lille, but there are still kind of question marks about what kind of player he's going to turn into. Extremely young. And it's not like the numbers say, oh, well, you're like bound to be a 6 or you're going to be a 10. It feels like he's an 8 right now, in the sense that it's hard to define what he is.
Yeah, he adds energy. I think he has continued. The thing is that he has continued to progress from when we've first talked about the player. He's this young guy who looks like a competent player on the field. He's contributing from a defensive side. He gets tight, closes people down, has a lot of energy to press and add that. And then mostly he's just trying to retain possession. He's not, real game breaker yet in terms of his passing. And I think he's still not, but he's added a bit more of the carrying from different parts of the field to continue to progress on his game. So I think anytime you see a midfielder that has the ability to carry out of tight spaces and pressure, that's always one that coaches get really excited about, because you start to see the top end potential.
Yeah, this is the thing. Whoever signs him is going to have a plan to develop him, because 100%. You look at him right now. I think there's always a tendency, right, to see a youngster and say look at this guy, he's an amazing player, and you're like, no, he's an amazing youngster. But right now, he doesn't really pop. His defensive numbers were very good last season. They've taken a bit of a step back this season. The passing is just not there yet. When you watch him, you obviously see flashes of it, but he's not a guy who's consistently, splitting defenses or passing into the final third. He just doesn't do it that much. He's not even on the ball that much. But you do see him driving through the middle of the park, and you do see him wriggling out of tight spaces. Physically, like you say, he's 6'1", and he just looks kind of a match for anyone. The link with Arsenal, you'd assume that it would be, oh, this is the guy who one day will be the new Rice. And you can totally see that as a comparison for him, the way you see him striding through the midfield. That's a long way off, and Arsenal obviously are, they want to get Miles Lewis-Skelly minutes there. PSG too, it feels like it would just be more of a statement, an assertion of dominance over French football to bring him in, because Vitinha, Joao Neves, even guys like Warren Zaire-Emery, it doesn't...
That's who I was going to bring up as well, then what's your gap between a guy like that and Zaire-Emery, who you've brought through yourself, who I think has worn the armband for PSG occasionally even.
Yeah,
too.
And who always looks good. He's a guy we all like, and he's a bit more of a final third difference maker than Bouaddi, because Bouaddi just isn't that guy. Chelsea's an interesting one, because Chelsea obviously use Enzo Fernandez in that kind of shuttling role. He's their go-to 8, I suppose. And they are pretty thin in midfield.
It's another one where if you were to bring him in, you've also, what does that say about how you feel about Lavia, for example?
Yeah, sure.
A player they spend a pretty good amount of money on. Andre Santos, who's been brought into the team, but that's also Chelsea. They've shuffled through so many players there. Bouaddi, again, I think there's a little bit here as we're spitballing it. He could be a number of different things. There is still time for him to add elements to his game, and how he'd look if he were in a team. He probably also develops pretty differently if he's at an Arsenal versus a Liverpool versus a Real Madrid, because these midfields are pretty different, are significantly different in the role that he'd probably squeeze himself into to try to compete and get the most time that he can.